Thank you very much, everyone, for joining this call today, where we're going to launch this resource, as Ian says, that we've been working on for the last few months in collaboration with councils from across England. Um, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of do a bit of scene setting first of all. So I'm going to kind of speak about some of the pressures that we're seeing in adult social care and children's social care today. And then I'm going to go through, introduce the resource and go through, how it was produced, what it contains, how you can use it, and I will do a little live demo. Hopefully everything works without a hitch, and then I will then pass over to our other two speakers today. So, okay, so first of all then, so that what I've said here is that the Case Study Hub aims to support councils address the pressures in adult and children's social care. I think it's important to note that there's no silver bullet for any of these problems. There's different approaches will work in different areas, but it's good that we can share this practice so that people can hook into it and learn from, the evidence of what's worked in other places. So just to kind of do some scene setting then, what are we seeing in adult and children's social care? Well, we're seeing demand and expenditure increasing. Okay. In the last couple of years, new requests for adult social care have exceeded 2 million for the first time. It's a significant increase in the last 10 years. Expenditures almost at £30 billion in adult social care, which has increased by over 50% in since 2016-17. Um, and we're also seeing adult social care and children's social care expenditure as a proportion of local authority net revenue expenditure increasing. So the CIPFA Financial Resilience Index from the most recent data has said that about 80% of local authority net revenue expenditure is directed towards adult and children's social care. So if we put these together, what we're saying is we've got a kind of financially unsustainable position at the moment because we're seeing demand increase, we're seeing expenditure increase expenditure as a proportion of local authority investment increase. And we know that there's, a host of problems from the cost of living crisis, from years of austerity and underinvestment that's meant that local authority spending power has diminished as well. We know that needs are becoming more complex. The number of adults who require double-handed care, for example, has increased, and then that obviously leads to increased expenditure as well. We're seeing widespread unmet need. There's recruitment and retention challenges in both adult and children's social care. If we just take adult social care, first of all, we know from Skills for Care that the national vacancy rate in adult social care is around 9%, which is about 3 times higher than the national average vacancy rate. And we're seeing, we keep hearing that the government are going to introduce a social care workforce plan, but we haven't seen that yet. But that is something that really needs to be actioned as soon as possible. And then we also know that care markets across both adult and children's social care are unstable. The government's National Risk Register from 2 years ago included widespread adult social care market failure as a risk to the UK's well-being and security. And that was the first time that had featured on that risk register, which kind of speaks to the importance of that risk. And also in children's social care, we know that the market there is absolutely not functioning as well as it would if we had a properly functioning market. So that's just setting some of the scene um, for why we were wanting to share these case studies. So first of all, I'll tell you about how we went about it. So the case studies underwent rigorous quality assurance in collaboration with councils across the country. So if I just kind of do this timeline, we initially made contact with directors of adult social services. And what I should say, sorry, is that the case study hub is launching today with adult social care case studies, but we are going to be adding children's social care case studies in the coming months. So for the adults piece, we initially reached out to directors of adult social care, just said what we were intending to do, if they had any ideas or anything they'd like to contribute. We then carried out interviews with selected councils on prospective case study submissions. Once we did those initial interviews, we then shared a template with those local authorities, asking them to describe their challenge, their actions that they took, the outcomes that they achieved, and any reflections on lessons learned and how they were going to maintain success. So this was about ensuring that there was consistency in how all of these case studies were presented, and we placed a real emphasis on evidence and making sure that in these case studies, local authorities were evidencing, the investment that they made, evidencing the outcomes that they achieved, and so on. The case studies were then screened by CIPFA, and in places we asked for additional information or said, can you flesh this out, or so on, just to make sure that they were as practical and as useful and replicable, really, as possible. And then finally, there was a kind of peer review of the case studies came with a scoring matrix and so on. And and in order to be included in the case study hub, your case study had to, receive a sufficiently high score from two independent reviewers to say that yes, this does represent, either good or excellent practice in the area that the case studies were about. So, as I've said, it's designed for you to access successful practical approaches to adult and children's social care finance. They begin, and you'll see this in a second when I do the demo, but they begin by CIPFA introducing it and placing it in a broader context of local and national challenges. We have the consistent structure throughout all the case studies of the challenge, the action taken, the outcomes achieved, and then reflection on lessons learned and maintaining success. And like I said, emphasis placed on clearly explaining the actions taken and evidencing the results. And we'll also have contact information for the case studies so that, if you read something you want to follow up with that council, there's contact details for you to do that included as well. The case studies are organised under four key financial themes. So these are achieving financial sustainability and value for money, new ways of working to improve outcomes, workforce matters, and then building trust through governance and assurance. And I don't know if I have enough time to go through all of these just now because I'd rather just get to showing you the demo. But this is just to say that the case studies cover a series of approaches to addressing key adult social care financial challenges. So you can see here, these are some of the themes that are in our launch case studies. So we have ones on AI and tech-enabled care, about monitoring and setting clear budgets for care packages, invest to save and transformation programs, stuff on intermediate care and reablement, workforce strategies. Going to hear from Andy about that shortly. Workforce development, and then and under the governance ones, we have ones about monitoring benefit realization and building effective assurance cultures in your organizations. It is a live resource that will be continuously updated. So, like I said, we're launching with adult case studies today, but we are going to be adding children's social care case studies at a later date. It's going to be continuously updated with new case studies addressing pressing challenges shared across local authorities, and we'll have dates and things like that about when these case studies were uploaded and updated. And yes, it's going to help you, learn from good practice and meeting the challenges that you might be facing, and it's also going to serve as a primary evidence base for future CIPFA work in adult and children's social care. So if that's the kind of thing that you or your organisation might like to be involved with, then we really do welcome you getting in touch. Right, okay, so this is where we try and do um, the demo. What could possibly go wrong? Right, okay, here we go. So, pardon me. So if you go on the CIPFA website, Building Sustainable Social Care is our social care landing page. Okay, it tells you about how we can support you in adult and children's social care. It links to forthcoming events that we're running, products that we have, and also our latest articles and publications. So you could click on here and see our work on Send, on managing demand, and so on. But as you can see here, there's a link here to social care finance in focus. So if I were to click on that, this will take you to the case study hub here. we introduce, we introduce the purpose of the case study hub and how it can help you. We, invite you to submit new case studies because, as I said, it's going to be an updated and growing resource. And then you can see here that we have the four themes that we've discussed. So building trust, financial sustainability, and so on. So if I were to click on one of them, that will take me through to this page, which has our financial sustainability and value for money case studies. Again, we have a little bit of an introduction here. And as you can see, you can go down and then there's a collection of case studies here for you to follow through with. So it'll tell you the name of the council, the title of the case study, and then there is a short summary of what the case study is about. So, for example, we're delighted to be joined by Sarah from Cornwall today. So, if I were to click on Cornwall's case study here, this will take you through to Cornwall's case study. Again, you've got a little bit of a summary of what the case study is. You have a piece that kind of sets the case study in a broader context. And like I said, you have your challenge, you have the action taken by the council, and you can see that, like I said, there's a kind of heavy emphasis on detail and evidence and on what was invested when and how and so on, and the different elements of the actions that were taken. You'll then have your outcomes. So for example, here, well, I don't want to do any spoilers for Sarah, so I won't read that out, but it does tell you the outcomes that the council achieved, and then reflections on lessons learned. And then you have your contact information at the bottom if you want to follow up with the council themselves on the case study. These ones take you back to, they can take you on to different themes if you're interested. And you can also see at the top that there are links to relevant CIPFA resources. So that there's our landing page, there's our advisory network, which hosts regular events on related topics. Links you through to related publications that we've had out recently, and so on. So I think that's the gist of it. So for example, if I click on new ways of working, you can see it's a similar thing. You have your introduction and you have your case studies here with their summaries, and you can follow through. So you can kind of scroll through it. You can explore through it as you like. So that was the demo. If I can bring my PowerPoint back up. Okay. So just like to thank you for coming to this, and I'd encourage you to use the resource to go and see the examples of good practice that are contained in there, and importantly, get involved in any way that you can. If you have an idea for a case study to be included, I would love to hear from you. You can contact me at william.burns@cipfa.org. Visit the resource there. It is currently live, so you can go and look at that today. Please do share it with your colleagues and with your wider network. CIPFA will be running a campaign on this where we highlight different examples from local authorities. So do please share them as you see them, and interact with those posts. And let us know what you'd like to see next. It's what I would also say to you. So thank you very much for listening to that introduction.